first moved in here, our goal was to do a little bit of work, aesthetic work, but what ended up happening was almost everything in the building was bad. The walls were falling down, the floors were built on no subfloor, just like tile on top of dirt. There was a dozen other problems that we had to fix. So basically, everything you see that doesn't have white tile on it, that isn't rough like this, is all brand new. So these walls are old, and because they're the living room walls of the guy next to us. But every other wall in the building is brand new. Every floor that doesn't have tile on is brand new. So there's a lot of things we haven't finished yet. We're about halfway done. So Esteban and I know most of you guys, so I won't go through the normal whole story, but I started making cigars with Esteban in his garage. He would roll them at night. We ordered our first 1,000 cigars in October 2011, I think, or 2010, October 2010. And then I sold those to a lot of you guys in sampler packs, the first 1,000. Before the month was even over. They didn't actually even come in for 3-4 more months. But between the time we took our first order and the time we actually delivered the first order, we had another 40,000 cigars sold. So at that point, we decided, hey, we'll start making cigars for real. And so, as I paid for cigars, Esteban bought molds and presses. And you remember Henry back behind Esteban's house. And then when we really got serious about it, we built a building behind his house, and then we pretty quickly outgrew that. So we moved here with the idea that we would build a place where we could make about 1,300,000 cigars. Even though we know Roma will probably never be more than 500,000, we've got discussions ongoing with other companies, big companies, to make limited editions or to make a whole entire line for companies that don't have their own factories. So we're in those talks. So we probably will bring on another Roma, another 300,000 or 400,000 cigar a year company, and we'll probably bring on a big company and make cigars for all free. That's what we built it for. We don't really want to get bigger than that because if you talk to a lot of these guys, Gilberto and these other guys, will tell you, once you get beyond 12, 15 pairs, once you get beyond certain numbers in any single line, it becomes that where you just got to feed the machine. And for us right now with Roma, we don't have any salespeople, we don't use brokers. We have 3 pairs right now. We have two more starting after the Semana Santa because that's when we're going to start making Neanderthal and another project we're starting. So as we grow on this new line, we're bringing on new rollers. But right now, we have 3 pairs. They make about 400 cigars a day. So we make about 1,200 cigars a day, about 6,000 cigars a week, 25,000, 26,000 cigars a month. And we sell, up until last year, we were selling 15,000 to 20,000 cigars a month, but making 20,000 to 5,000 cigars a month, so our inventory got built up. Right now, we're making about 24,000 cigars a month, but we're selling about 40,000 cigars a month. And this is a pretty slow part of the year. We plan on bringing on a bunch of new retailers at the show, 30 or 40 more. So we'll probably get up to our plan, our tobacco inventory, and our financial plan for this year is to get to about 500,000, 600,000 cigars for this year. So, of Roma, and another 300,000, 400,000 for something else. So, for a company that's been around for 3 years, we're still really relatively small. A lot of little factories, especially factories that have facilities this size, will cram as many rollers as they can in and make a ton of bundle cigars for CI and other people to dilute the fixed costs of the factory, right? I mean, you have one accounting woman, you have one supervisor. If you have 12 pairs or 15 pairs, it dilutes the cost that you have, so it's a lot more economically viable. But for us, our feeling is we don't want to make anything in this factory that's not equal to the cigars we make because of the culture we're working really hard to build around how we do things. And if you start making cigars that you're selling for 75, 80 cents, then that becomes really hard to manage both kind of quality cultures in the same building. So every factory has the same kind of spaces. Every factory has a place where stuff comes in and stuff goes out. That's this space here. We basically stage our exports in here, and we basically bring. This morning it was full of boxes. We do very, I'll get more into it down here, but we do very just-in-time inventory planning. And we actually use our old factory as a bodega to process our short filler, our picadura, and also as a place to have pilons. Right now we have 2 pilons of Fabrica, and we have 2 pilons of filler that we're testing process on. So come in this way. So Logan can tell you exactly. This is my partner Esteban Disa. So everything in our factory is built on lean process, and Logan can explain that in more detail what that means. But essentially, what it is, it's about reducing waste. It's about reducing wasted movement. It's about reducing consumption of energy. It's about making it as efficient as possible. What's the third rule of the cigar business, Charlie?
Sorry?
What's the third rule of the cigar business?
Lives, it's all about the tobacco, and cigar people are business people.
Most people in the cigar business are not business people. So everything here flows in a circle. So everything comes in through here, goes back to our bodega, and I'll talk to you how it goes through the process, but it comes all the way in a circle until it goes back out to the front. We minimize the movement of things. When they come in, we stage them where they're going to be used. We really try to eliminate excessive movement of things from one place to another, because movement is where damage happens, and it's also wasted energy. So like I said, every factory has the same spaces. You have a ingress, egress, you have a bodega for raw material. Everything we buy and bring in is ready to use. We don't process tobacco like Drew Estate does, other than the pilons that I was telling you about. Everything we buy is ready to use. Everything requires a little more processing, which I'll talk about, but primarily you have to wet the wrapper. That happens in the mojadero, and you have to dry the filler. That happens in the secadero, and you've seen those spaces in other factories. Once those 2 processes happen, it's brought out to the middle there. On Saturdays we have 5 of our part-time ladies that come in. Sometimes they come in the middle of the week. They dispadillo the wrapper, they sort it by color and quality. They sort and separate the filler and move it into the secadero. Once the tobacco is processed, it moves into the Materia Prima bodega, which we'll see. Then it comes out to the production floor. From the production floor, there's 3 quality steps. Then it goes into the escaparate. Once we have a very systematic way of moving stuff into materials and tobacco into packing, and then a very systematic way of getting it ready for the next shipment. Every single 4 months, because our Cro-Magnon aquitaine is 4 to 5 months in the escaparate, we have pretty much everything that was made in that cycle goes through a packing process. The intemperance we do 90 days. Because we age it for so long, we're able to give our box maker 3 to 4 month lead time on our requirements. And because of the way we pay, our boxes always come in exactly as we need them. So generally everything we bring in through that door in the first 2 weeks of the month is exported by the last 2 weeks of the month, and then it starts over.
Just in time, by how many days?
Well, time is money. So when it comes to the tobacco, we'll talk a little bit about our inventories. We'll talk a little bit about our inventories in here. But things like labels, boxes, cellophane, vegetable gum, those kinds of things we deliver as we need it. So we'll go first to the bodega here. So this is a lot smaller than Drew Estate 2, DE2, but it's basically the same space. So each box of this filler costs about $4,500, $5,000. Each pack of wrapper costs about $600, $700, $800. So we have 6 blends that we make on a regular basis in the factory, about 9 blends that we make over time. Big thing in here, which I don't know if you guys have even talked about before, but one of the things that I learned, every pack has information on it. And if you go into any factory, you can see Viso, Medio, Mediano, Grade A, Viso Grande, Grade A, Ligero Mediano, Grade A. This is Ligero from the Dominican. It only comes in one grade, which is A. They're more concerned about where the crop came from. So most filler comes in these packs. When they pack it, they leave it a little bit wet. The reason why they do that is 2 reasons. One, because if it weighs more, they get more money. So the wetter it is, the more it weighs. And also because it doesn't get damaged as much if it's a little bit damp. The other reason is because as it's in this pack, the weight of the other packs continue to ferment it, because humidity, time, and weight creates the composting. It's very, very slow, but even in here, we recycle these stacks every week. They call it the 3rd fermentation. I don't know that it makes a huge difference, but it still ferments in here. When you want to use it, you have to separate it out and dry it to get that humidity out of it, or you can't make cigars. Wrapper, on the other hand, as soon as you pull it out of Pilon, you want it to be completely to stop the fermentation process. So they put it in these boxes, A, to protect it from the weight of the other boxes because it's very expensive, $7, $8 a pound, $28, $35 a pound, and also because they want to stop the fermentation. They don't want it to start up again. They don't want any mold problems or anything else. So that's why you see filler packed this way and wrapper packed this way. It'll come out a little bit at a time. They'll separate it out by hand into 5 or 6 leaves apiece, similar sizes, and then they'll put it into the secondero. The wrapper leaf, they take the vein out, sort it by size and by color, and some of it whether it's binder property or wrapper. In 100 pounds of wrapper of Matafina, there's 50 pounds of binder, automatic. So a lot of what you'll hear about in the economics of making cigars is yield. So for Matafina, for example, you may need 25, 26 pounds of wrapper leaf in order to make 1,000 cigars. Whereas Ecuador, Connecticut is 95, 98% wrapper leaf because there's almost no fermentation involved. And that is 10 pounds per 1,000. Even though it's $28 a pound, whereas Matafina is about the same price, it's a lot more economical because of the yield. So the wrapper leaf, first what happens is they will humidify it. This is part of processing tobacco. So you guys can come in. So basically what they do is they will humidify the tobacco in the water here. And it depends on the type of tobacco what kind of process they use. For Ecuador, Connecticut, for example, they'll sit it on the head and let water get absorbed up into it. For broadleaf, you just wet it a little bit and shake it out. And for Fabrica, it's a little bit of a combined process of that, and it involves refrigeration. So, but processing happens in every factory because the process of humidifying the wrapper is a type of processing.
Processing the wrapper is a type of process?
What I mean is, the moja process is processing. Sometimes the moja involves just putting a little bit of water on it. Sometimes it involves dunking it into tanks. Sometimes it involves dunking it into tanks of wine and vinegar and all kinds of other shit. And actually, the other moja process that happens with tobacco is when you make a pilon, you have to humidify the filler leaf. So we don't have filler pilones here, so we don't moja filler. But sometimes a lot of that chicha or that kind of, extra stuff happens in this kind of process. But for us, everything here is very natural because we put the money into the tobacco up front and want to taste that tobacco, right? We don't cook Fabrica, which is rare, because cooking it takes away the flavor, and you buy it for the flavor. So that's why you'll see a lot of our cigars are very rustic looking. They may have veins, they may have modeling in different colors. It's because we don't process it. We try to buy the best tobacco we can buy, but it's never going to all be the same. Most factories have inventory. I mean, Drew Estate has a humongous inventory, but they also make 96,000 cigars a day, right? So for us, even though we only make 1,200 cigars a day, we keep between 12 and 18 months of inventory in almost every tobacco. And out of Fabrica, because of the cycle that we're using on that, it's about 3 years worth. For broadleaf, right now it's about 2 years worth. For Ecuador, Connecticut, it's about 7 or 8 months worth. For most fillers, it's 4 or 5 months, but for some fillers, it's a year. But even though we only sell about $35,000, $40,000 worth of cigars out of this factory, that contain about $28,000 worth of tobacco, we have about $800,000 of tobacco in our name. And that's a whole lot of inventory carrying costs for small production. But it's also why our cigars are consistent. Because it's easy to make cigars, but it's hard to make cigars for a long time. So this is the Mojadero. This space here is going to be a kitchen when it's done. This is my office, and Esteban's office, and you guys can check it out. Everything in the factory is this kind of craftsman style, which you know from Chicago. So when it's all done, everything's gonna have the same kind of lines, because we want every aspect of the factory, whether it's the hinges on the doors or the windows, we want it to convey the type of quality we put into the cigars as well. For the price of a couple of Cigar Aficionado ads, you can build a really nice factory. So it's not easy, but you can do it. So this is the secondary. Again, it's pretty simple. Basically, only 2 things happen in here. 1, we dry the filler leaf, and 2, particularly for prensados, we will dry a day's production worth of cigars in here for 1 day, just to get the excess humidity out. So there's dehydration extractors, humidity extractors, that suck out the humidity. You can tell it's a lot warmer in here, a lot drier. This window does not open, for example. So you guys can open it. The raw material bodega. So once the filler is dry and once the wrapper is ready, these are the components we're using for the cigars we're making this week. The filler is dry, the wrapper is sorted into eaches of sizes and colors. And then they get packed in bags, and I don't see one here, but there'll be a little bag tonight. Esteban's son will prepare a little bag, and it's basically enough wrapper leaf, about 4 pounds, to make 100 cigars. Wrapper leaf's about 40 pounds per thousand, universal kind of rule of thumb. So each pack represents the blend that buncher is going to need to make 100. And the rolero will get 50 wrapper leaves at a time. Now in a lot of factories, what will happen is they give that tobacco to the roller. And the way that they control the quality of their blends is if I give you a pound of Lajero, 2 pounds of Viso, and a pound of Seco, I want 100 cigars back. And if I give the roller, 50 wrapper leaves, I better get 48, 49 cigars. So what happens is, in a lot of factories, is the bunchers will start out one way, and then when they find that they're having a little bit, weird kind of, distribution of tobacco, they'll change in the middle of the process so they can finish that tobacco by the time they finish their 100 cigar. Because every cigar has to weigh plus or minus 2 grams. Up here, because every leaf of tobacco is different, and you guys don't have time, but in our blending process, we talk a lot about the texture and size of the leaf. Our bunchers know exactly what the blends are, which is not common in every factory. They know exactly what the tobaccos are. They know why we use those tobaccos in that blend. And they have the autonomy and the empowerment to change the quantity that they're putting into the bunch. So if they feel that the texture, and they'll check with Esteban sometimes, If they feel the texture on this particular Viso is a little bit lighter than it was yesterday, maybe we'll use a little bit more of that. If they feel like the texture on the Ligero is a little heavier, maybe we'll use a little bit less of that. And when we see every time we open a pack, we look at the tobacco. When we go through the second process, we'll say, hey, when we put it into the 4-pound pack, we may intentionally put 3.6 pounds of, or 1.8 pounds of something and 1.2 pounds of something else, because that tobacco is a little bit different this time. As consistent as we try to be, every time you open a pack of tobacco, it's different. We may go look at 50 packs of tobacco and see 40 different types of tobacco, texture and fermentation. So we give that autonomy. So if the buncher says, hey, I need another third of a pound of this or another 20 leaves of this, we'll go and get them some more, because the proof is in the pudding, and these guys have been rolling cigars for so long that we give them the empowerment to do it. And that's because, and you guys have heard me say this before, blending is not an event. If someone says, hey, I came and blended a cigar, that's bullshit. Blending is a process. It happens when you buy tobacco, it happens when you dry it happens when you sort it in the moja process, it happens in the bodega when you select it out for the buncher, it happens at the buncher table. All those times, blending happens. And at any point in time, if you don't get any one of those steps right, your blends are not consistent. From cigar to cigar, you'll get a little few changes. The main place where that, at most factories, particularly larger ones that have a lot of employees, that they can't empower the way we empower our people, is they don't allow this part of the blending process to happen. So once the cigars are rolled, they're set up on the table. The roller always has to hold the buncher accountable. Before we put a 35-cent wrap relief on a cigar, if they feel it and see a soft spot, they will give it back and say rebunch it, or turn it into picadura. Because right now it only has cost us 25 cents. As soon as she puts a wrap relief on it, it costs us 55 cents. So after she makes cigars, sometimes Flor or Esteban will notice a cigar is a little bit, once it's dried a little bit, is a different shade of color. They'll put it aside to put a new wrapper on it, or they'll put it aside because it got a little bit soft. Then it goes up front, and another check happens at the end of the day when it's dry. Another check happens mainly for color at that point. And then it goes into the escaparate. When it comes out of escaparate into packing, there is another quality check as the label is put on, and then there's a quality check as it goes into the boxes. So we work very hard to make sure that we don't have quality issues, which every factory does, but it's a lot easier when you're a small factory. Once the cigars go through that quality process, they go into the escaparate. This is Arlen and Doris. The only two people in the factory that work for me. Everybody else works for Esteban. Actually, Esteban says they all work for him, but they actually work for me. And we both work for Esteban. So normally what you see behind you would not be in here, but we don't have our shelves built for our packing yet, so we have to stage a lot of stuff in here. Is everybody in? So this is my favorite room. It's also the one that costs the most money. It's basically like a bank vault. We have about 100 and, right now, because we just shipped, we probably have about 130,000 cigars in here. 120, 110, 130. Anthony would know. Anthony is Esteban's other son, and Anthony's responsibility, even though he's only 15 years old, is keeping track of all of our inventory processes, from the time it comes out of production to the time it leaves from transport. Iraldi, his first son, is responsible for managing inventories moving from the bodega, moja seca, to the rollers. And he's 17. They've both been working in tobacco for about 6 years. So this room, every box has a code on it, and the code doesn't correspond to where it is located on the shelf. It constantly changes. But that code, I can tell you what the serial number was on the filler of every component we used, what the serial number was on the wrapper leaf, what day the wrapper and filler was processed, what buncher, what roller, what day it was put in here, all kinds of other, about 26 pieces of information I can tell you from this number. I have a database that we built to do that. When I have a demand signal from my company in the U.S. for this month, we close out our sales orders on about the 15th. I know I need 35 boxes of this, 75 boxes of this, 120 boxes of this. I go into my computer, I run a query, and I say, how many cigars that are over 4 months or over 3 months do we have that are of this size? It tells me what boxes they're in, and I send a signal to the packing ladies, pull these 6 boxes on Monday, pull these 6 boxes on Tuesday, pull these 6 boxes on Wednesday, and pack all these things up. And at the same time, I get signals if I have a shortage on any other material component, and we solve that generally about 2-3 weeks before we need it, if it's in our control. I mean, if the whole entire country runs out of Cedro Macho and you can't make boxes, that's not out of our control. But so every one of these boxes will have between, depending on the size of the cigar, will have between 580, 600 cigars to about 225 cigars. So one day's production is generally about 5 boxes. And a month's of production is generally one of these spaces. So in here, we have the oldest cigars we have in here, because there's some things we keep as a litmus test. Things we keep in here from, we have cigars from probably about 100 cigars from like our 5th month of making cigars, 3.5 years ago. Because every time we get into a new kind of cycle of wrapper, a new kind of cycle of a new pilon of wrapper, a new type of, we change vendors on filler, we go back to that reference point and say, okay, it is older, it's changed, but how are we still getting the same kind of consistency? In fact, you know, really what's happened for us is our consistency has gotten better, not because the tobacco's changed so much, but because this space is a lot more conducive to drying the cigars properly in the rainy season. Our process of moving things through this factory is a lot better than our process of moving things through our old factory. So in here we have Aquitaine, Cro-Magnon Aquitaine, Cro-Magnon, which is broadleaf and Habano. We have Intemperance, which is Autopodaca in Connecticut. We have cigars we make for Leaf and Bean. We have 2 brands we make for a store in Chicago.
Blue Havana?
What's that?
Blue Havana?
For Blue Havana. We make a cigar called Ouroboros
And Abaddon.
and Abaddon. Yeah, they're both very good cigars.
Yes, they are.
But see, those are examples of brands that we don't own. I had nothing to do with naming them. I had nothing to do with the box design. The blend is owned by them, so if they want to take that blend and go to another factory, that's their right to do that. So we made a little sampler for you guys. What this is because we blend in the 56 ring gauge. This is every 56 ring gauge that we make. So it's each of the 4 lines plus one of the candelas, and you guys are welcome to take one.
Thank you.